Hello and welcome to this next video in which I am reviewing my lessons with my professional guitar tutor. As you can probably gather, we're still into strumming patterns, but in this video we're going to be covering two really useful bits of information that came out of this lesson. The first one is a different way to lay my fingers down for the C chord that makes life so much easier, and the second is a cure to my problem with the metronome. I'll be covering all that in this video in just a moment. Hi, you're watching Cypher and this is my 6-string journey. My channel in which I am documenting my journey learning to play this guitar, and I cover all of the gear that I use and other guitar related topics. So if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, and if you have subscribed, thank you for following me along. It's great to have you along for yet another video, and if you like this video, please hit the like button. It all helps to support the channel. Now, this was a video of, or a review of last night's lesson. So we're on day 232, roughly 57 hours of practice done. And for those of you who are following carefully, you'll notice that I'm well down on my practice hours. The main reason for that is I effectively took a week out, didn't pick up the guitar for a whole week, whilst I was decorating my workroom, which is primarily my workroom, but also my practice room. And I'll just share a few little nuggets of that in a quick cameo right now. So that's why I haven't been uploading videos for a while, and I apologise for that. But I've now got a practice place, home of my own, and yeah, much happier working in here, and obviously practicing the guitar just before I start work and lunchtimes in the evening. So I'm hoping to get those practice hours back up. So for this particular lesson, we started off by reviewing the chords. I'm still struggling with those, as you can probably tell. The G chord is getting better. I say it's getting better, but once again start having trouble. And switching down to the D chord and back to the G chord. That's basically where my main emphasis of practice is. But also, building on from the last lesson, was the strumming patterns. Now, because I had taken a week out, I almost, very nearly decided not to do this lesson and call it off. But I'm actually very glad I did, because not only did I have the two nuggets of information, which was well worth it, but things actually went a little bit better than I had thought. So we started off just by picking a chord, and then I asked Michael to pick a beat to miss. I think he chose beat number 3, but we'll do that. And then I started to strum that out. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and then the other thing that we did is we went on to the more complicated strumming pattern that he's got me doing, which was 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and I was smiling, because that's probably about the best I played it, to be fair, but that was without the metronome. Now, as soon as we introduced the metronome into the mix, things then started to get a little bit more complicated, and I very quickly started to get ahead of the beat. So what Michael did is he said, well, hang on a minute, the metronome is probably a little bit too sharp, a bit too defined. I can't remember the exact words he used, but it was a bit abrupt. So what he decided to do was to find another application, which was a drum machine. Now the one that we were using last night, I could only use for a short time and then it started to go a bit weird. So I'm now using an app called Beat Station. I've got the beats per minute set to 100 and there's a whole load of different bits and pieces in here. I'm just using this very simply. So if we just set that running, then that's the beat that we're going to be playing along to. And you've got both the major beat for the downbeat, for the 1 or the 2 or the 3, but you've also got the snare drum, I think it's a snare drum, for the and, so it's giving you both parts of the beat. And suddenly, once I started doing that, everything started to become a little bit easier. So missing that third beat again, we'll go 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. So things were a lot easier playing with the drum machine, and the other thing as well is I was finding is that I was able to accentuate different notes. So maybe, you know, the first beat, playing that a little bit harder and then the rest softer. And I'm finding that playing with the drum machine is just so much easier and so much nicer. And I'm tending to use the drum machine for when I'm doing my strumming patterns, but I'm still using the metronome when I go back to doing my scales. So as you can tell, it's slightly wavering. I'm not even throughout. And when I use the metronome, then that's slightly better. Won't worry about that one for right now. So basically, introducing the drum machine, mixing with a metronome, I think is the way to go, and that was what I really took away from that part of this lesson. So then obviously we were looking at the chords, and I'm continuing to work on switching between the G and the D chord because my G chord is still not very clean. I still need to do a lot of work on that. But as I think I said in a previous video, some people take weeks to sort this out. So for me to do it in a couple of weeks is probably a little bit too much to ask. And that is definitely the way to go. But I'm not fretting about it as much because I fretted about the D, and now I can play the D chord pretty well straight away. So I'm not worrying about that too much. I'm just going to carry on practicing and just working away at that. But one of the chords that we did talk about was the C chord, which I find to be quite a stretch to get my ring finger over, and I tend to, as I'm pulling my ring finger over, my middle finger tends to ride up and over the fret, which then means that I tend to be deadening strings. So what Michael said to me to do, and this was fantastic, was to start by putting my ring finger down first of all, then my middle finger, and then my first finger. And as you can see, straight away I get a much nicer, crisper sounding chord. And by putting my fingers down in that order, it feels a lot more natural, and I don't find that I'm stretching. So we start, as I said, with the ring finger, then my middle finger, and then my first finger. And again, straight away, we've got a nice clean chord to play with. So now I've got to work on moving between the G chord, which is a complete move of fingers, to the D chord, and then throwing in the C chord as well. And you can see there I just immediately laid my fingers down the wrong way. Now one of the interesting things is when I'm playing the C chord, my little finger is free. So moving from the C to the G, what I can do is to drop my little finger down, which gives me an anchor point, then bring my ring finger over, and then the other two go down. And then I'm finding that I actually get a much cleaner G chord straight away coming from the C. So we're starting to introduce different ways of laying fingers down that enables me to play the chords a little bit better. So yes, I very nearly didn't do this lesson. I'm so glad that I did, because the fingering for the C and the drum machine have just made life so much easier, and it's certainly making practicing a lot more fun, and I'm enjoying it again, which is basically what this ride is all about. So anyway, I'm going to be practicing the strumming and the chords still. That tends to be the main emphasis at the moment, but Michael also wants me to continue to practice with the scales to the metronome, and also the riffs that I haven't played for 2 or 3 weeks, so I'm not going to practice those now. I hope to do another video in about a week's time, in which I'll be going through my whole practice regime as it is at the moment, and then I'll be covering everything. In fact, I've rearranged my book with all of my music sheets in it, so that each part of the practice regime follows. But like I said, we'll follow that, go through that on a future video. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you like this video. If you do, please hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider, because it's great for those of you that are supporting the channel, and it's very much appreciated. In the meantime, I will see you on the next video coming very soon. Thanks very much. Bye bye.